as we're preparing to bring athletes to the Arnold in just under a week, what I like to do as we were going through those final steps of preparation, building competition strategy and so forth, is go through all the data that we've accumulated over the course of weeks, months, and quarters. And just to understand, like, where we are from a progression standpoint, how well did we do? Did we miss any marks? Did we make, gains? And when I say gains, like, are they PRs? And PRs go much broader than that of a new clean and jerk or a new snatch number. I'm looking at it from the standpoint, are we moving faster? Are we more explosive? Do we generate more power? Those sort of things. And I'd like to take this opportunity to sort of walk you through this spreadsheet from this particular athlete. And this dates back all the way to June of last year. He did compete in July, and now we're getting ready to compete again in March here. So I'm going to sort of like tell the story as it relates to the numbers that are on the screen, and just follow with me. Hopefully you save this, reference it later. If you're not training with VBT, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend the OVR Velo device, super inexpensive, $250. And it's going to give you a ton of data that you can use to sort of like move your training in the right direction, add more intent, and really have some data to back up if you're doing things correctly or if you're not doing things correctly. So let's just jump right into it, going from left to right. On the left column, we've got the date in which this exercise was performed. I've sorted everything here through the back squat, and it's at 170 kilograms. Now, obviously, we've squatted, in excess of 170 and below 170 within, from June of last year till now. However, I wanted to have an apples to apples comparison and use that as a reference point. And we've used that as a reference point throughout the last, 9 months or so. So everything's sorted to 170 kilograms. We have our set number and our rep count, and then we have the rep number. And now the rep number is probably the most important aspect of those three, being that we can see that quality diminishes or declines in terms of velocity over the course of reps, which is totally understandable. Do you get slower the more work you put in within a given set? Yes. So we're looking at average velocity, sometimes referred to as mean velocity, and we have max velocity. Velocity is basically meters per second. So how quickly are you moving the bar with a given load over a specific distance, which that distance is a meter. We have range of motion, not as important, not as interesting. Range of motion is essentially in inches, and that's basically, you can see the slight fluctuations, 27.8, 30.4. Does it matter? For this, not necessarily. And it doesn't really necessarily change any of the analysis. One thing I do want to point out is that all these numbers are on the concentric, so the going up in the squat, not going down. So average velocity, max velocity, only concentric movement. Now let's look at average power or mean power and max power. These are important because this is the power output, and this is calculated within the device itself. And you can see that power does fluctuate throughout a given training cycle. So if we look back at 6.2, going all the way till 6.9, you can see there's some pretty big fluctuations in the amount of power output that an athlete is generating on a given squat. I find this to be fascinating. Now, if we scroll down and fast forward all the way to here, we can see that just yesterday on 3.2, this athlete was generating in excess of 3,000 watts. So why this is important? So this athlete is generating more power at his peak than he's ever done historically, which means he is in peak sporting form. He is ready to go. So right now this athlete is in a taper. We've done all the work. We've put all the reps and sets in, and now you can see that everything is coming to fruition, and we should be able to see, based on this, based on data, based on the science, that this athlete is ready to perform. Another key tidbit or another metric that I obsess about is time to peak velocity, which is right here. So time to peak velocity is also measured in seconds. And you can see that at the very beginning, when we first started measuring with VBT, you can see 1.55 seconds, 1.59 seconds, 1.63 seconds to peak velocity. Now, not very impressive. It takes over a second and a half to reach peak velocity, where if you scroll down and you look at how our taper is going, you can see 0.9 seconds, 0.94 seconds to peak velocity. And this couldn't be better. This is exactly where we want to be. So overall, when we're looking at time to peak velocity to now, we can see almost a 40% improvement the time in which it takes an athlete to reach peak velocity. Now, sometimes measuring data or measuring PRs is subjective. Now, does this directly translate into a bigger lift? No. Could it? Yes. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm super excited to see the outcome here. You can see the numbers in raw format. You can export these out with an OVR device. I highly suggest it. If you got any questions or you want to drop me a comment, go ahead and do so. I'll make this data basically accessible to everybody, and hopefully I see you at the Arnold.